Alright guys, let's get right back into it with some more Dynasty Fantasy Football content. Y'all know this is by far and away the best way to play fantasy football is Dynasty Fantasy Football, just because there is so much more strategy that goes into this format. You can really dive into it so deep, where redraft leagues, really it's black and white. You're just getting the best plays in your starting lineup. Don't really have to think about it much more than that. Dynasty, on the other hand, completely different story. In this video, we are going to be talking about Cam Akers. So with Cam Akers, the reason we are covering him is because this is who y'all told me y'all wanted to hear about. In the last video, I told you to go down to the comment section, let me know what player you wanted to see next, and by far and away, the most commented player was Cam Akers. And now I am asking y'all to do the same thing on this video. Let me know what player you want to see next. Let me know what player you would like us to cover, and then that will come out tomorrow. So please go down to the comments below. While y'all are down there, please make sure you drop a like on the video, and I will continue to get y'all a video every single day. Okay, so now let's zoom back on Cam Akers. Let's look at his overall draft profile that we were honestly kind of obsessed with this summer. So Cam Akers came into the NFL at 21 years old. He was selected by the Los Angeles Rams with the 20th pick in the second round. He has prototypical size to be a 3-down running back at 5'10", 217 pounds. And at the NFL Combine, he actually put up some very impressive marks. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I promise you, Cam Akers is a plus athlete. We actually knew this dating all the way back to high school, when Cam Akers was the #1 recruit in his high school class. He ended up going to Florida State, where really he was a disappointment, but it was not his own fault. I mean, if you ask anybody that was diving into the film, if you asked anybody who was diving into the advanced analytics, it was because the Florida State offensive line was one of the worst offensive lines in the entire country. So it really did not allow Cam Akers to go out there and have the type of production that we would have saw from a Jonathan Taylor, just because he was getting hit in the backfield consistently. But what we also liked about Cam Akers, besides his size, besides his athleticism and his overall draft pedigree, was actually his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. This was one of my favorite things about Cam Akers coming out of Florida State. We were viewing him as a legit bell cow running back and thought that he was going to be one right away in the NFL. Well, now let's flash forward. Let's go halfway through his NFL season. We're about to go into week 11. So far, Cam Akers has seen very limited action, just because he was dealing with that rib injury halfway through the season. Yes, he did come back after a few weeks, but when he came back, he was active for a few games, but did not see a single touch in those games. Now, if you look into anything that was coming out of Los Angeles and the beat reporters, they were all saying that he came back from this injury a little bit too early, and that's why he was not seeing action. So I think we can take those games that he saw, that he was active, but he saw no touches in, and completely throw them out the window and treat them just as if he was injured as well. And now let's go into what we've seen from this Los Angeles Rams backfield in 2020. And right now, it's a 3-man committee between Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and Cam Akers. In terms of rushing yards per game, we are going to be looking at all these per game metrics, at least for Cam Akers, without the 2 games that he was active and that he did not see a single touch, just because we know that he was still dealing with that rib injury. There was no reason for Sean McVay to rush him back. Really, he was just active in emergency case scenario. Regardless, let's look at their yards per game rushing, and Darrell Henderson is sitting at right over 50 yards. Malcolm Brown is at about 38.6, and Cam Akers is right behind Malcolm Brown at almost 38 rushing yards. This is per game. And then we go to receiving, and we look at Darrell Henderson averaging about 14 yards receiving. Malcolm Brown only averaging about 11. I thought that we would have more receiving yards per game for Malcolm Brown, but that's the case. And Cam Akers averaging about 5 receiving yards a game. Now, same thing with touchdowns. Touchdowns very evenly split between Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown, who are about averaging half a touchdown a game apiece. Cam Akers has yet to score so far in 2020. So I think if we use these overall productive profiles so far through 2020, it's actually very telling on what I think we could project for Cam Akers in 2021. Because if we look at the team investment for Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. Really, Cam Akers is definitely the highest team invested running back. I think that next year they are going to be incentivized to try to get him to lead this backfield in overall touches. As well, Malcolm Brown honestly looks like he could be expendable for this offense. They would save some money by cutting him this offseason. He really has no dead cap on that contract. So I think we're looking at a likely scenario where going into 2021, we have both Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers in this backfield. Obviously, both of them are on their rookie contracts, and I think we are just going to see Malcolm Brown and his production leave the offense. And based on the fact that if you look at the overall college profiles between Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers, also the fact that they are significantly invested into Cam Akers, where they took him with their very first selection in the 2020 NFL Draft, I think that we can actually expect Cam Akers to progress in this offense and continue to expand his role. And I think it's safe to say that we are just going to have him soaking up all of the Malcolm Brown production, having Darrell Henderson keep his same exact marks in this offense. So if we look to add the per game stats of Malcolm Brown over to Cam Akers for 2021, we are looking at Cam Akers averaging about 90 total yards a game between the receiving and the rushing side, and about 2 receptions a game and half a touchdown a game. Now, if we look at his points per game, this would put him at 13.9 points per game in PPR leagues in 2021. And if we looked at that through an entire lens, that's actually going to project him to be a low-end running back too. If he scored that amount this past season, he would have been the running back 22 in points per game. So I think with Cam Akers, honestly, the play is we are going to be sending out some trade offers right now, knowing that you could potentially scoop up Cam Akers for a 2021 first-round pick. And then if we see this offense move on from Malcolm Brown, very similar to what we saw with Darrell Henderson's value this past offseason when they moved on from Todd Gurley and Darrell Henderson shot up to the point where you could have traded him for like the 108. I think we are going to do the same thing with Cam Akers. The only difference is Cam Akers is going to have some production on his 2020 NFL profile. So a lot more people are going to be excited about Cam Akers going into 2021 than they were with Darrell Henderson. I think we could actually see Cam Akers be worth an early first-round pick in 2021. And if you could invest a mid to late pick right now, I think that would make a ton of sense. Even if you're not a believer in Cam Akers, you can at least invest in him to profit this offseason. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, please make sure you go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out, and I will see y'all in the video tomorrow.